Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Well, thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We are joined by David Leventhal. He is founder of Playa Viva. It's an incredibly beautiful B Corporation certified regenerative boutique hotel, and it's near Mexico. I encourage everybody to go and have a look because it's absolutely beautiful. They have an organic farm, a yoga and retreat center, as well as a turtle sanctuary. It's dedicated to a triple bottom line that works to improve the planet, people, and prosperity. It's situated in this gorgeous area, and if you're looking at this on YouTube, you'll be able to see behind David. There's a photograph of it, and it's at the bottom of the Sierra Madre Mountains on the Pacific coast of Mexico. And the sort of the thing that they've got on the website says it said guests can enjoy the luxury of immersion in nature. There's 19 treehouse rooms, and they enjoy nearly a whole mile of private beach with 200 acres of nature reserve as well to explore. And we're going to be talking all about that, about the materials, about how you do it, the rationale and the ethics and everything. But first of all, David, many thanks for joining us today.
Vanessa, thanks for inviting me and really looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing. Well, obviously, for all our listeners who are into a biophilic design, biophilia is all about life and living systems, using natural materials as well, and having, reducing our impact on our environment for all life, and not just ours. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? What got you to this point? What got you into founding Playa Viva?
Yeah, if you would have asked me when I was in college if I would have Playa Viva, absolutely not. I had no idea. I really had a trajectory of working in media and also technology, mostly on customer facing side. And um, at some point, we ended up buying some land in Mexico and building a home there and wanted it to kind of follow our values. At that same time, we had gotten involved with a biologist named Gerardo Ceballos, who was doing a jaguar study in the Calakmul area of Mexico, bordering up where Mexico and Guatemala meet, looking at the amount of space they needed for a viable population. Anyway, long story short, we got involved in setting up a conservation easement with them and saving over 500,000 acres of land. Part of that was realizing, wait a minute, here I am, saving all these trees and this, umbrella species, and then I go off to Costco and come back with, packaging and just, so, how does those two conservation worlds live? And realizing that, every little decision I make from what I buy to how I invest my money and how I spend my time is really important. Also, part of that trajectory and growth was meeting a guy named Sean Paul as we were expanding Calakmul and doing something called uh, Rainforest to Reef and looking at corridors. We were working with a nonprofit in Guatemala, which Sean Paul was involved in. And what he really had me look at was even if we created these protected areas, they weren't protected if the people around there were poor and needed to go in and extract trees and animal pellets and things like that. And so you really need to deal with the people problem as well as the kind of planet problem. And they all kind of actually go together. And that's where Sandra Khan, my ex-wife, went off to Greenbuild and looking at who was going to be our partners in developing Playa Viva that aligned with our values. And she met Bill Reed with Regenesis Group, and Bill really showed us and was part of this evolution of how to work in a regenerative way and think in a regenerative way, which was really a continuation of our values of conservation and social environmental impact, and really looking at things in a whole systems way. And biophilia, I think, was a outcome or a consequence of working in that way, and also kind of our values of how we liked to live and travel through the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice you said that, your values in the world. And that for me, when we're all banging on about is this biophilia, the biophilia hypothesis. If we apply that to every decision we make, whether that's manufacturing something, buying something, building something, is it to the detriment of life and living systems? Then don't do it. Don't buy it, don't manufacture it, don't make it. But if it's going to be enhance it, regenerate a space, a place, living systems, then yeah, that's cool. Do it. So maybe we could talk about that in relation to Playa Viva. I mean, you've touched on it there, but can you maybe explain like the design concept behind Playa Viva?
Well, part of the design process through regeneration was really looking at history of place and honoring place,
Oh,
and
nice.
how we took what is 200 acres and developed these multi-level maps looking at that kind of geology, anthropology, archaeology, spoken history, you know, the flow of materials, really looking at it from that multi-tiered level map that went into designing all 200 acres. When you got down to the architecture of the buildings themselves, they've really evolved over time. One of the early concepts that came out of the Genesis charrettes, design charrettes by an architect named Irie Cunliffe, was this place has been a coconut plantation with palm trees. And where we were going to build the hotel was going to be on the beach. Obviously, people want to be on the beach and have that ocean view. So the concept came in of transplanting the palm trees from the orchard in the back onto the dunes to provide this kind of organic vegetative fabric to hold these sensitive dunes in place. And we did some treehouse tests and they worked out really well. We realized that you could support 2 tons on every tree. And we're like, well, no building we're going to build is going to be more than 6 tons on 3 trees
Oh,
triangulated. Yes. And but then we started transplanting the trees, and our transplant rate wasn't as successful as we liked. So we built homes on stilts while we figured out how to transplant the trees. And once we got the tree transplant down, um, and the secret was very like minor, but we figured it out. Then we really started building tree houses. These are living buildings. And the first design was done for us by Kimshasa Baldwin, this kind of iconic uh, tube that you see uh,
mm,
that was on the cover of Travel and Leisure magazine for us and really has been kind of this iconic building. And in travel, a lot of people want that kind of Instagram moment. So it became popular for people want to come and, take the photo in that room. And from there, it evolved. And Kinshasa designed the expansion of our common area, but we worked with a group, Olav, Bruin, and with Nomadic Atelier out of there in Rotterdam, I believe.
mm,
And they, one of our guests had taken a video, and there's a really beautiful video or documentary about how this all happened. But one of our guests had taken a drone video of what he thought was garbage in the ocean, but it turned out to be this squadron of manta ray.
oh my
And
word. Wow.
it was like, wow, it was really, really impressive. And the idea was, could that kind of squadron of manta ray be an inspiration for this kind of manta ray inspired tree houses? And sure enough, Olaf had done a manta ray inspired tree, well, home before, and they came up with a design in the time we needed it. And we ended up building those beautiful manta ray village um, at Playa Viva. So, much of the design is inspired by Sandra and my kind of desire to be integrated into nature.
Mm,
When we go someplace,
yeah,
we unplug the refrigerator and the air conditioner, just that hum of human noise, and then we open up the windows and let the fresh air come in. It's, how do we connect to place? And so Playa Viva also, it's not hermetically sealing you from nature. It is actually connecting you to nature. You brought up a quote, which is the immersion in the luxury of nature. And so much of that really goes into guiding the architecture and design and selection of materials and so forth.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the materials. Can we I mean, obviously people are listening to this. We can I can share some photos on the spiel that goes with the podcast. So people go to the website, journalofbiophilic.design.com, go to the podcast page, they'll be able to find this podcast and they'll see visuals on there. But if someone's just listening to this, challenge number one, David, if you were going to describe that, I mean, you described it as a tube, and you've also described how it's open as well, isn't it? You got nature on the outside, on the inside. It kind of blows through, actually. I mean, there's wind, of course, but actually nature, I would say, kind of enters and exits, and it's like a seamless symbiosis, isn't it, really? Can you sort of describe them, the tree houses, a little bit, and what, maybe one of them or something, what it looks like, just to give someone an
Yeah.
idea.
Well, for example, two of them are the jets, which is that tube, the Tiki Skylab, I think somebody called it. And it literally is this bamboo kind of circle, well, cylinder that has a floor, and you've got trees kind of going up through it that suspend it up in the air. And your bed is in there, and we have a curtain that can come down, but it's high enough that people kind of can't see in. And the all of our beds have mosquito nets around them that provide this kind of tent-like internal structure for privacy.
Mm,
And the materials are the bamboo, it's local wood. Um, so, nature flows through it as you move through it. The manta rays, again, are kind of these um, parabolic structured roofs made of kind of bamboo that are woven together, and then they're actually built on the ground and raised up. There is a video of that whole raising of it onto within the living palms and attached to the palm trees, and then the whole floor structure is put in underneath it, and then these kind of side, let's call them the ribs of the manta rays, are put up, and a kind of frontal grill, again, bamboo and open to nature. There's curtains again to shut it all down, and then the internal space. But it is these what are called bamboo bones, where you take the bamboo and kind of cut an edge off either side, and you've got the open part of it, so air flows through it. Um, so very, very natural environment all around
mm.
uh, with the buildings.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, you're living actually in nature, aren't you? It's actually part of you, part of it. It's definitely not a separation. I think it's there. I mean, it's beautiful. You just want to stay there forever. I wish houses were built like that everywhere. And we were surrounded by trees and plants and everything.
Part of the experience for a lot of people that can be disconcerting at first, but then becomes completely natural, is this
Mm.
sense of no windows or doors.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So nothing at all. So you just literally enter and
You don't,
like a cave,
yeah,
like a cave almost.
yeah. We're not giving you a key. We just escort you to your room. We show you how to close the curtains down, but yes, you are completely exposed to nature that way. And that is part of, I think, the internal change that happens, that you let go.
Yeah.
Because so many of us are used to coming in and bolting and locking a door, and that sense of enclosure and separating ourselves and securing ourselves, and I put securing in air quotes there,
Mm.
from nature.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're conditioned, aren't we? I mean, for security, for all this kind of things, fear, everything. But when you are in nature, you're in a safe place like that. To feel that freedom is so liberating, isn't it? Really? Yeah. I always leave my door open as well. I just can't stand being shut in. I kind of, yeah, barefoot as much as I can, and yeah. And I live in a very lovely village, so. Um, can we describe actually a little bit about how the construction was done? Because particularly like the last one of the last ones that's built, this Infinity Casita, it was the newest eco luxury space, but it was hand built. Is that right?
Well, everything is fairly hand built. I mean, it's all craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Um, what's interesting about the Infinity Casita which is newest casita, is we actually combine two different kind of building materials. The ones which we had used before, which was the bamboo, but
Mm,
we started using, or we used and integrated, and this was the idea of the architect, Andrea, um, is, and she's Studio O, to give her a little pitch, but she came up with the idea of using kind of manufactured wood.
mm,
Um, and so this is wood that's kind of cut in pieces and glued together, and the glue itself is from the resin of the sawdust of that wood. So it's not like we're using chemicals to glue them together. And so that kind of compartment, that, you know, kind of living space is pre-constructed and then assembled on site.
mhm.
And that's assembled around the bamboo structure, which is built by hand on site.
Wow.
So there is a lot of craftsmanship involved in everything we do. I mean, the shower floors are made from kind of pebbles, um, and are kind of, laid out like artwork. In this case, we use the sign of an infinity on the floor of that. Every shower floor is done that way. So just the texture, it's not a tile that's already made of pebbles that are kind of assembled. These are,
Yeah. And
each and every single pebble is placed by hand.
wow. That's just that organic feeling, that organic, real feeling of, putting your feet on stone. I love that when I love going to outdoor showers. If I've gone to like Vietnam or wherever it is, and I've had the luxury of having that. And even actually here when I have, go and stay in a shepherd's hut and they have outdoor showers, it is just something about putting your feet on the earth, feet on the stones, like nature stones, like you say, not manufactured, not pre, you know, machine done, but something that's like from the earth. It's quite wild, isn't it, really?
Oh, well, and the view from the shower infinity casita looks down over it looks over the turtle yoga shala, which also is supported by 8 palm trees
Oh my
and
word.
with beautiful bamboo design. But then the beach, which is just miles and miles of untouched, just pristine beach that you see. And so it's an incredible view from the Infinity Casita.
Oh wow, it looks amazing, absolutely beautiful. And I mean, I can imagine why. So you actually built a house there originally. So you kind of looked at it to live there. Is that what your plan was?
Well, no, yeah, well, sort of, kind of. What happened uh, I got a call from my ex-wife while I was working in technology going, "Yeah, I'm buying some land on the beach in Mexico." And I was like, "Yeah, and I got a bridge in San Francisco to sell you." She's like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm buying some land in Mexico." I was like, "Okay, don't do anything until I get there." And when I got there, she took me to the notary's office where in Mexico, that's where all official documents are signed. And she had picked out the land and bought land down there. And so we had built a kind of second home.
Yeah.
Um, you know, she really loves to kind of create community and invite groups, and the idea of having our own place to do that. And that was built kind of green.
Yeah.
And then during the go-go days of the 2000, kind of flipped land in Troncones and saw the rise. And we were thinking about buying land next to us at Casa Viva in Troncones, which is north of Zihuatanejo, Ixtapa. And it was just way too expensive. And through our accountant, we heard about a piece of property, 200 acres, 86 hectares, 1.3 kilometers of beachfront, a mile of beachfront, and ended up buying that. And really, that original concept was to build a community. The original branding of Playa Viva was residence community and boutique hotel, sustainable residence community boutique hotel. And what we built as model homes and opened in November of 2008, when the global economic crisis happened, was converted from model homes into boutique hotel and then just evolved over time.
Mm.
So yes, the plan was to make homes,
Yeah.
uh, but it ended up as a boutique hotel.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about the materials that you've used here. I mean, we've touched on the stones and stuff. I've read on your website that you're using like natural paints made with sand, crushed seashells and eggshells. I mean, can you tell us about like why the materials are really important to you? Obviously, biophilic design, it's all about that sort of like bringing, actual real elements of nature as much as we can into our built environment. But I mean, obviously, you've got a carte blanche there. You can do whatever you wanted to do. You could have chosen like to stick, normal paints, gone down to, like you say, Costco, come back with a bucket and just stuck it in. But you've been really, really, really sensitive to the environment, to the local people, and you mentioned that right at the beginning, which was a really important thing to you. I can tell, being honoring the space and the place as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the materials you used and maybe why and or the rationale behind that as well?
Sure. So I would kind of tip my hat to the original architect on kind of Casa Viva and phase one of Playa Viva, which is Michelle Lewis. And um, the name Casa Viva is kind of living house, which came from, you know, the walls are going to be, this is the architect. The walls are going to be made out of pulp, like mud, like, from earth, like all these living materials. It's like a living house. I was like, yeah, that's the brand. It's Casa Viva. And Playa Viva, I was like, it's not just a house, it's a whole beach. It's Playa Viva. But the original idea was this sense of using local materials to create a sense of a living place that you inhabit.
Mm.
And so uh, all the pigments and the wall finishes are this kind of cop-like finish. I say cop-like because it's not all the way through. In some cases, it's just a layer. And Michelle would go up into the mountains and come back and say, wow, I found this beautiful orange and look at this rich brown. And I found this white, but it looks too much like cement, so I don't think we can use it. And so these were these natural pigments that came about. And then on top of that, each area had a different material mixed in. So, you know, we would use hay cut up in the dining area, and then we used horse manure in the kitchen. It was kind of like, this homage to, food is compost, is manure, and, little touches. We would use seashell pieces um, for external to give it this hard external, and internal would be softer things like the cut up hay, things like that. We even used the turtle eggshells. In other words, as we worked in the turtle sanctuary, they would clean out the nests and have the old turtle eggshells. And so we were like, well, let's see about using that material. So, kind of in a bathroom, we use turtle eggshells. So, talk about eggshell paint. Um, it's included in that. You got to be careful of your use of natural materials and kind of extracting them from the environment,
Mm.
but at the same time, kind of using it appropriately
Mm.
to create this almost unperceived sense. I mean, being surrounded by a natural pigment with a harder surface on the outside, and as you cross that threshold, and it's a natural pigment with a softer finish on the inside, it touches you in a way that I think is imperceptible. But when you point it out to folks, they just like really love it and really get it.
Mm. Yeah, it's a harmony, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt.
Mm. I can tell that you've had a lot of fun creating this, and and obviously I can tell it makes your heart sing, the way you're describing stuff, and I can imagine as well when that exploratory period where you were looking at colors and shapes and what you were going to do in the materials and things. That must have been real fun.
Oh, for me, definitely. I mean, I mentioned early on that my background was in media and technology, and
Yeah.
really see so much of my start in media around storytelling. And
Mm.
I find that what we do with Playa Viva is storytelling,
Mm.
that, you know, we're now entering season 17. Every year we close for a couple of months in the summertime and reopen with a new season. And we have similar cast, Julia Garcia, our general manager, is back, for season 17. And we have new members and we have guest stars who come in for each season. But, we are creating this experience for people to go through, and we are curating all the way down to the materials, all the way down to, as we say, no locked doors, the immersion of luxury in nature. There's so much of what we do about community and uh, the balance of private spaces and public spaces, about engaging people kind of deeper and deeper into the natural environment,
Mm.
from getting them out of their rooms and as a guest, getting them into community areas, out into the landscape, onto the farm, into the turtle camp, out into the community, and really connecting to place. That is so much about, maybe you can call it biophilic tourism. We call it regenerative tourism, but it's all, I think, part of the same.
Yeah, it is. It's all one. It's all one, isn't it? It's all one. Yeah, you're right. Biophilia, regenerative design. It's all that, living systems, living patterns, and it's all part of one whole living system. I can't think of another word. It's like it's not trying to make it into rocket science. It's not, is it really? Um,
No, and I think a lot of it's your entry point, your perspective, but yeah, it opens up to the rest of it. It's like the more we realize we don't know, the more exciting it is to open up to all these things.
Yeah, and exactly. And also, I think, I also want to talk about, I'm going to go off piece slightly, but so I want to talk about storytelling and how we can persuade people to do things better as well with your media background and obviously building this and creating this and having a vision for it and getting everybody on the same page, as it were, all following the same series. How do we do this on like a better scale? The leisure industry has a part to play in all of this. And I think if you're booking your holiday, you just tend to do the same thing that you've always done and la di da di da, which is great. It's all good, that's got a place. But I think once you've experienced something like Playa Viva, when you've experienced that, when you've felt like the words you use there, when you felt it, when you've really felt it, when you've breathed it, when you've your skin feels differently, your lungs, your heart, everything, heartbeat, your eyes, the colors you see, everything, you just see everything, you perceive things differently. You can't unperceive it, unfeel it, unthink it, unsee it, can you? So I mean, how do we how do we get people doing this better? Like, how do we get, yeah, how do we do it, David? Tell me.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've let me unpack that question. Um, so the first thing that came to mind is, one of the things that you brought up is the whole, how do you feel it? We have one guest say, you know, I've been hanging out here and watching guests come in, and they all come in with their black on and their devices falling out of their pockets and the makeup and the hair done and everything. And by day two, the Playa Valium has really kicked in.
Yeah.
Uh, but you're right, it does change you. And it is that immersion in the luxury of nature. And you do notice it. And so the other thing that guests then tell us is, you check all my boxes, even boxes I didn't know I had. And now you've ruined me. Now I can't go anywhere else but Playa Viva, but there's got to be more Playa Vivas in the world. That's how the whole regenerative travel on the network of hotels and that entire other endeavor of ours got started. Um, and there are other places that do this. And so I think the other question that you're asking is, how do we move from just Playa Viva to this larger scale? And so that to me asks a question about theory of change. How do we create the change we want? And I'm a believer that change happens little by little until it happens all at once. And so, as I started out, we need to make those decisions that align with our values and say, no, I'm only going to vacation this way. I am only going to buy goods that do this. I am only going to invest in companies that blank. And eventually that change will happen and we will invite other people into that process. And yeah, we'd get a lot of retreats. About half the guests at Playa Viva are groups, and half of them come on like a yoga retreat. And every once in a while, there's somebody who is super busy. They have a retreat leader they follow. The retreat leader says they're hosting something in Mexico, and they're like, "I'm in, sign me up," and they go. And they didn't look at the website, and they didn't realize they were going someplace that had no doors or windows and locks and immersed in nature. And they're a hermetically sealed kind of a person. And they show up and they're just like in their crisis mode. They're out of their comfort zone and they're freaking out. But they're there
Mm.
and they're following their leader. By day two, those people have gone through the deepest transformation and are so appreciative because it's really opened up a new possibility to them. And so, yeah, I think that's the whole goal is really to open up these possibilities to folks, um, and then be strict about the decisions you make, and we'll get the change we want.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
an optimist, obviously.
I know, yes. Well, me too. Me too. That's why I'm doing this. No one in their right mind would do this, but I know I believe it. I believe in this so much. And also having these interdisciplinary cross, you know, industry conversations so that people learn, they pick something up from this and we'll take it to there. And like you say, it's these little tiny micro changes that we all make. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's a flip. I'm seeing things happen in different ways faster in certain areas. And I think, like you were saying, like individuals, really, the sort of citizen kind of movement, really, as well, by our choices, will have a bigger impact. But yeah, let's push the fast forward button. um,
Yeah. Well, again, this is the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, Martin Luther King. And, when we look back, we we think, wow, it took forever, but then in the kind of course of history, we realize how much things have actually changed. Obviously, it doesn't always go in that direction. Sometimes it spirals down a bit before going back up, as we might be experiencing.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And let's leave that there a minute. Yeah. I just want to just quickly touch on, like, because you say technology, but you using low energy solutions as well in terms of like obviously airflow, but air conditioning and all that kind of thing. Could you just touch on so the people who might be architects or specifiers or something that might be listening might be going, oh yeah, but what's that kind of aspect? What does that look like for you?
yeah. Well, when we got to the place, there was no electrical lines running into it. In Mexico, you got to pay to run the electrical lines in.
Mm,
Also, Mexico's electricity is some of the dirtiest and most polluting electricity being produced. It's the burning of bunker fuel. So we started out using solar panels, 18 years ago when we started Playa Viva
mm,
and expanded with the technology. And we're 100% off-grid solar. We have a backup generator, which runs LP gas, which we try to run as little as we can, and we're lucky that we don't have to run it much. We use LP gas for cooking. We are going to be looking at upgrading our stove systems to being electrical, which will give us a lot more control as well. So we we have air conditioning units running more so in what I'll call back of house operations than we do in guest rooms. The only guest room that has an air conditioner is the Infinity Casita, which we built using a technology called Evening Breeze out of Amsterdam, to test that unit to see if it worked. It's a lower energy consumption air conditioning unit. It works in a lot of resort environments, and it can even work where the room is opened up, but the air conditioner is inside the canopy bed. So the air conditioning can stay just within the canopy bed. And then that system only has like cool comfort. Um, it's not like you can set it on 16. Yeah.
yeah.
The settings on it are keep it also at a good energy use. So the response has been good or mixed at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of guests who are like, you know, air conditioning is going to bring in the wrong crowd. Um, but for example, we have a frequent guest who just sent me, wedding pictures, and she wants to invite her children to come, but one of her daughters needs air conditioning. And so I think for us, it's a way to expand that audience, as I talked earlier about, you know, sometimes people who think they need it, once they get there and realize they don't. But they need to be exposed in a safe environment that allows them to kind of cross that threshold and barrier.
Mm. It's just about what you were saying before. It's a systems change, isn't it? It's changing people's internal systems too and thought processes. I like that. Yeah, they're step by step. Um, we're getting in the end, but I want to just quickly ask you about I'm pointing over your shoulder because obviously I'm looking at the beach. So in the photograph that you've got behind you, sorry. But the turtle sanctuary and the thing, can you tell us a little bit about that, please? Where that's come from, what you do, what the ambitions are, can people get involved?
all
All
all of the above.
that.
The turtle sanctuary was there when we got there. Originally the people that work there in protecting the turtles were originally poachers. There are still poachers. The turtles come to the beach, lay eggs, and then go back into the ocean. And unfortunately, they're being threatened by not only poachers but predators. There are tejones, quadrimundis, and dogs that scour the beach and will dig up the nest. And so what they do is they go up and down the beach on a 4x4 quad and try to get to the nest before poachers and predators do. Take them back to a sanctuary, a place that we've set up with that's locked up, and um, then the turtles are safe there and are born there, and then we release them. And so, they've got a budget of about $20,000 to run that place, give or take, depending if they need a new 4x4. We need to kind of move the sanctuary because it needs to be moved every couple of years
Right.
for bacteria. Um, and it is supported by guest donations. Playa Viva has a 2% regenerative trust fee that goes to the social environmental work that we do. And the turtle sanctuary is part of it. These are all locals
Yeah.
who, as I said, some of them used to be poachers, but know how to find the turtle nests. And guests can participate in it. Usually you go down at dawn. We release them at dawn because there are fewer birds then, and that's usually they are born overnight. Um, and it's a beautiful process. It's a beautiful process to experience and watch, to have that moment with the locals who are doing kind of their volunteer job
Mm.
and having this beautiful experience happening. So I think of the 7 turtles, we get 5 to our beach or something like that. But mostly we're looking at olive ridley, the black turtle, and then what's called leatherback turtle, which is a highly endangered turtle.
Yeah.
And it's in my total time being there, I've seen about 4, and it's just a marvelous experience because it's just, a 2 meter, it's a huge animal that comes to the beach. So,
Yeah, they're wonderful creatures, and they're such symbols of survival, aren't they? Really, and but also they're markers of what we're doing to the planet as well, aren't they? So it's so beautiful that you've got a space for them to come and you're trying to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, markers of what's happening to the planet. And part of the work that we're doing now is expanded beyond just the turtle sanctuary or, working in the schools, but what we call RESIMAR, RESIMAR, which is regenerating from Sierra to Mar. It's a whole watershed regeneration project,
Okay.
which starts at the headwaters and goes all the way down to the beach and covers a variety of nodes, which is looking at things in a much more regenerative way. And recently, we spotted jaguar and got some kind of camera traps to be able to take photographs of jaguar up in the mountain. And so this is part of this umbrella species coming back has been absolutely marvelous as well.
That's amazing. What a beautiful ecosystem. And like you say, it's enriching the more you protect one little bit, it starts having this sort of snowball effect, doesn't it, really? Yeah.
Well, that's the work we're trying to do in the watershed is protect little bits and the snowball from the top to the bottom.
Oh, that's beautiful. And presumably everybody can find this on the website, can they? If you want to give the website a plug here.
Yes, thank you. It probably is it on this side or this side? I'm not
So
sure.
it's on that your right side. Yeah, that's it. Oh, your left side. I don't
Um,
know which way around it is.
yeah, the mirror image. So Playa Viva is PLAYAVIVA.com is our website. Resimar, RESIMAR.org is the nonprofit work that we do. You can find it, I think, through our website on the Impact site. Also plug to regenerative travel .com and finding the other Playa Vivas of the world and people are doing amazing work, much of it Biophilia and Biophilic inspired in what they're doing. Um, yeah, and you mentioned at the top that we're B Corp certified. The other thing to mention is we recently received two keys from Michelin. Michelin is not only giving Michelin stars to restaurants, but they're giving now keys to hotels. And Mexico was one of the first countries they started doing that with, and we're proud to be having Michelin keys. So.
Wow. That's amazing and well deserved by the sound of it and by the look of the pictures. I'll have to come out and visit, she says. After next year, I think. But David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And is there anything else in particular that you'd like to add? You'd like to leave anyone with any thoughts or inspiration or anything at this point?
Well, first of all, Vanessa, thanks for having me on this podcast. I mean, I think what's been inspiring for me is to kind of, so much of what I talk about is regeneration, regenerative travel, and social environment impact and all that, to really begin to dig deep in, wait a minute, what we did is biophilia, and how does that really touch and impact people? And so thank you for kind of reminding me about how what we do um, through these design principles, whether we're taking them consciously or unconsciously, really help create welfare, well-being within the folks that we touch. So thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Well, the final question, David, that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, if you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
Well, it would look like Playa Viva. Yeah. I think, you know, it's that concept of hermetically sealing ourselves versus opening us and connecting us to nature. And so I think we can take the built environment and kind of blow out the windows and doors,
Yeah.
not physically blow them out, but really create this space where, yeah, how do we connect ourselves deeper to nature and not disconnect ourselves to nature? When I'm in Playa Viva, I am so aware of things like the lunar cycle,
Mm.
being able to walk out and see the Milky Way. Um, and so, you know, anything that we can do that can enhance our connection to nature, that's, I think it makes us better humans. So, and I think that um, that's part of the key is how we see our roles as humans in the world. I go back to Genesis and the interpretation of Genesis of, when the world was created and then God gave man dominion over. And it's not really dominion. That's not the translation. The translation is a word closer to stewardship, that we have a special place. And I think once we as humans are painted with that brush to understand that role, then everything will flow from there.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.